Europe has been hit with a brutal truth, and it didn't come from Kiev. A Corisk NUPI study warns that a Russian victory will cost Europe twice as much as supporting Ukraine. For Brussels, this is a nightmare scenario. For Moscow, it's confirmation that Europe is running out of money, unity, and patience. And where is Zelensky in all this? Begging for survival, drowning in scandals, and watching Europe realize one thing. Backing Kiev is now more expensive than facing Moscow head-on. The Corisk NUPI assessment doesn't hold back. If Russia advances further, Europe faces $1.2 to $1.6 trillion in fallout, refugee waves, defense budgets, and political instability. Why? Because Ukraine, under Zelensky, is unable to sustain itself and barely holding its political system together. While Russia advances with strategy, Kiev arrives with panic, corruption, and a presidency losing control. For Europe, this is no longer about morality, it's about minimizing losses, and the study quietly admits Europe loses less when Moscow dictates the outcome. According to the study, if Russia continues pushing westward toward the Dnipro, Ukraine's political direction, economy, and NATO ambitions get rewritten by Moscow. Analysts say Europe could lose up to half of Ukraine, with Kiev slipping into long-term instability. What Europe calls collapse, Russia calls strategic correction. And with Zelensky's government fractured, Moscow's leverage only grows. A Russian victory could unleash 11 million more Ukrainian refugees, costing Europe nearly $952 billion in just 4 years. Defense spending would skyrocket as Eastern and Northern Europe scrambled to rearm. The Baltics, Moldova, and the Nordics become pressure points. For Europe, this isn't just a war. It's a financial sinkhole, and all of it flows from Kiev's inability to hold the line. Even the study's optimistic scenario, Ukraine winning, comes with a massive bill. Europe would still pay $838 billion, supply millions of drones, thousands of tanks, and rebuild Ukraine's entire military. Analysts admit Europe would need Russian frozen assets just to cut the cost in half. Even in victory, Ukraine drains Europe. Even in defeat, it drains Europe more. For Brussels, the question becomes, why bankroll a war Kiev cannot win alone? The report warns that US support for Ukraine is fading, leaving Europe stuck with the bill. With Ukraine facing a 2026 budget crisis, Brussels must create a long-term funding model to keep Kiev alive. Russia sees this clearly. Zelensky sees it desperately. Europe? It sees an endless liability with no victory in sight. EU leaders aren't hiding their fear anymore. Von der Leyen backs a $140 billion reparations loan using frozen Russian assets. Mark Rutte warns that restoring deterrence after a Russian victory will cost trillions. Norway may tap its $1.8 trillion wealth fund just to support Kyiv. But behind the diplomatic language lies the real message. Europe knows it is cheaper to support Ukraine now than to face a victorious Russia later, because Russia is defining the price.